Do you know about Max? Max is not just any dog. He's a German Shepherd, big, strong, and super smart. But most importantly, he's a hero. Let me tell you what happened one special day in a little town. Max lives on a small hill near a quiet neighborhood where the sun paints the sky orange and gold. He sits there every evening, watching the world. His eyes are sharp, full of purpose, like he's waiting for something important. Not far from Max's home, there's a small neighborhood filled with cozy houses and smiling faces. And in one of those houses lives a little girl named Emma. Emma is just 5 years old. She has curly brown hair that bounces when she skips along the sidewalk, and she loves to explore her world. Max watches Emma every day. Behind the wooden fence, his big eyes follow her as she plays. There's a quiet friendship growing between them, even if they don't say a word yet. They looked at each other. Emma's eyes were full of wonder. Max's eyes were gentle and kind. It was like a magical moment, a beginning of a beautiful friendship. But then, one day, something scary happened. Emma was chasing a bright butterfly deep into the forest near her home. She didn't notice how far she had gone, or the dark trees around her. As she ran, the sun shone through the leaves, making patterns on the ground. But suddenly, Emma found herself near a steep slope. She slipped and tumbled down the hill, landing at the bottom, scared and alone. Back at home, Max suddenly stood up straight. His ears perked up. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. Emma was in trouble. Max's eyes scanned the forest beyond the fence. Without hesitation, he ran toward the trees, following the smell of his little friend. At the bottom of the hill, Emma sat alone, her dress dirty and torn. Her little heart was pounding. She was scared and didn't know which way to go. But then, she heard a familiar bark. Looking up, she saw Max running toward her, fast and determined. Max reached Emma quickly and nuzzled her gently. He wanted to comfort her, to let her know she was safe now. Emma wiped her tears and hugged Max tightly. Together they waited for help. A kind police officer heard Max's barking and followed the sounds into the woods. He found Emma and Max right at the bottom of the slope. The officer carefully helped Emma stand. Emma's eyes sparkled with relief as she hugged Max. The officer smiled and patted Max's head. Soon, Emma's mom arrived, running through the trees. She cried with happiness when she saw her daughter safe. Emma held her mom's hand tightly and looked at Max with gratitude. From that day on, Max wasn't just a dog. He was a true hero. The story of Max's bravery spread through the whole town. People brought treats for Max and drew pictures of their brave dog. Max sat proudly, his tail wagging slowly. He knew he had done something special. Emma and Max became the best of friends. They played together every day. Max always watched over Emma, ready to protect her no matter what, because that's what heroes do. As the sun set, Max and Emma walked home side by side. Long shadows stretched behind them, a perfect end to a perfect day. And Max? He knew this was just the beginning of their amazing adventure. In a quiet mountain town, where mist rolls in each morning like a soft blanket, there lived a dog named Shadow. He wasn't just any dog. Shadow was a black German Shepherd, tall, alert, and quiet like the night. Everyone in town knew Shadow. He didn't bark much. He didn't chase squirrels, but he always watched, like he was waiting for something. Shadow belonged to an old man named Mr. Howard. Mr. Howard was a forest ranger once, now retired. He and Shadow would walk the trails every morning. But nearby, there lived a little boy named Leo. Leo was 7 years old, curious, a little shy, and always with a red cap on his head. He loved building little forts in the woods behind his house. Shadow saw Leo many times, building forts, picking wildflowers, pretending to be an explorer. Shadow and Leo never really met, but they had a silent connection, a quiet, invisible thread between them. Then one day, the clouds turned dark earlier than usual. Thunder rolled over the hills. Leo asked his mom if he could play outside. She said, "Only for a little while and don't go far, okay?" But the forest, it always pulled Leo deeper in. He followed a trail he hadn't seen before. It twisted and curved until the trees were thick and the light barely touched the ground. Then, he heard something, a rustle, a growl. He turned, and there it was. A wild boar, big, angry, too close. Leo froze. Back in his house, Shadow was laying by the door. Suddenly his ears twitched, his eyes opened wide. He stood up, and without a sound he ran. Shadow didn't know why, but something inside him knew. That little boy was in danger. Back in the woods, Leo tried to back away slowly, but he tripped on a root and fell hard. The boar stepped forward. Then, a black blur flew through the trees. Shadow. With a growl louder than thunder, he charged at the boar. The boar squealed and ran into the forest, crashing through the bushes. Leo sat up, shaking, tears in his eyes. Shadow stood in front of him, breathing heavy, but calm, like a guardian angel. Leo reached out with a tiny hand. Shadow gently nudged it with his nose, and in that moment, they finally met. Shadow led Leo back, step by step, always looking back to check. And when they returned to the edge of the woods, Leo's mom was crying and running to him. She held him tight. And Shadow? He simply sat down and watched, his eyes full of quiet pride. The town heard the story. Shadow saved a boy, they said. He was on the newspaper. Kids drew pictures of him. The mayor gave him a medal. But Shadow didn't care about medals. He just sat on the hill the next morning, watching, listening, waiting. Because heroes like Shadow don't need words. They just know when they're needed. And somewhere deep in the trees, a little boy named Leo waved toward that hill, thankful, and never forgetting his silent protector. Bruno was a black Labrador, strong, gentle, and with eyes that sparkled like stars. He lived with an old lady named Rosa. She was retired and lived alone in a little house in the countryside. Bruno meant everything to her, more than a pet. He was her family. Every morning, Bruno walked with her to the fence. He waited while she watered the flowers. Then he'd lie by her feet as she drank her coffee. Life was simple, but full of love. One day, the sky looked strange, orange, and heavy. The wind blew harder than usual. Rosa went outside to collect firewood. Bruno followed her like always. But this time, he stopped. He sniffed the air. Something was wrong. Bruno ran up the hill. He looked far into the distance. Smoke, then flames, a wildfire. It was coming fast. Rosa didn't notice, but Bruno did. He barked, loud, ran to her, pulled at her skirt with his teeth. She didn't understand at first, but Bruno didn't give up. Then, she saw it. The fire, coming right toward them. Rosa started to run, but she was old, not fast enough, and the fire was moving faster than she could walk. Bruno stayed by her side. He barked, pushed her gently, guided her through the smoke, but the fire was everywhere now. Ash fell from the sky. The smoke made it hard to breathe. Rosa was coughing. She stumbled, and she fell. Bruno didn't leave her. He grabbed her bag strap in his mouth, tried to pull her. She tried to get up, but she was too tired. Bruno used all his strength, pulled her just far enough to a safer spot, away from the flames. Then, he stood over her, protecting her. A few minutes later, a fire truck arrived. A neighbor had called for help after seeing the smoke. They found Bruno barking beside Rosa, shielding her with his body. She was alive because of him. The whole town heard about it. Bruno was on the front page of the newspaper. Dog saves woman from forest fire. Children came to visit him. They brought treats and drawings. And Rosa? She would smile and say every day, "If it wasn't for my Bruno, I wouldn't be here today." There was a time when Sam, an 8-year-old boy, felt completely alone in the world. After his father passed away, Sam and his mother moved to a small countryside town. He didn't know anyone. He barely spoke at all. Most days he just sat on the porch, holding his dad's old baseball glove, staring at the sky. Then came Shadow, a stray black German shepherd with golden eyes and a cautious heart. He appeared one evening, standing at the edge of the woods, watching the boy silently. Day after day, Shadow would return, inching a little closer, until one morning, Sam woke up to find the dog lying on his porch, curled up by the door like he had always lived there. Sam smiled for the first time in months. They became inseparable. Shadow followed Sam to the fields, waited by the school gate, even slept beside his bed. The dog wasn't just a pet. He became Sam's guardian, his best friend, the shadow that followed him everywhere. But one winter evening, something terrible happened. Sam had gone into the woods chasing a red scarf that blew away in the wind. The sun was setting, and the snow was beginning to fall. What started as a small walk turned into confusion. Trees looked the same. Paths disappeared under white. Sam was lost. The cold bit into his skin. His little hands shook. He called out, but no one answered. The woods grew darker. The wind howled louder. He sat against a tree, hugging himself, tears freezing on his cheeks. Hours passed, but far away, Shadow knew. The dog howled, scratched the door, barked wildly until Sam's mother understood. She opened the door, and without waiting, Shadow sprinted into the snowstorm, nose low, eyes locked on invisible tracks. He ran for hours, through icy rivers, over fallen logs, until he found a tiny red scarf tangled on a branch. He sniffed it, barked loudly, then darted into the trees, and finally there he was. Sam, pale and shivering, too tired to speak. Shadow licked his face, whimpered, and nudged him. But the boy could barely move, so the dog did something amazing. He lay beside the boy, wrapping around him, keeping him warm. Then he barked, again and again, loud and strong, until finally the sound of boots crunching snow came. Rescue. They found the boy wrapped in Shadow's fur, barely conscious, but alive. Doctors said Sam wouldn't have made it another hour. It was Shadow's warmth and love that saved him. After that, Shadow wasn't just Sam's dog. He became the town's legend. A statue now stands near the woods, where the wind still carries the memory of one cold night. And the dog who kept a promise to never leave the boy he loved. Ever since she was born, Ava had never spoken a single word. Doctors said she had selective mutism, a condition that made her unable to speak, especially when anxious or scared. She could hear, she could understand, but her voice stayed locked deep inside. Her parents moved to a quiet mountain town, hoping the peaceful setting would help Ava feel safe. But even in the calm woods, Ava still didn't talk. At school, kids tried to befriend her, but when she wouldn't respond, they drifted away. So Ava spent most of her time alone, drawing, listening, watching. Then one day, everything changed. It was early spring. Ava was walking by the lake near her house when she saw a golden blur leap into the water. A golden retriever had jumped in to fetch a stick, swimming gracefully, splashing joyfully. When the dog saw Ava, she paddled to shore and dropped the stick at her feet. Ava smiled. The dog barked once, wagged her tail, and then nudged the stick toward Ava again. That was the start. Every day, Ava returned to the lake, and the golden dog was always there, waiting. They played. They ran. They sat in silence together. Somehow, Ava felt understood. Her parents were surprised to hear her laugh, a quiet sound they hadn't heard in years. Ava named the dog Luna. Though Luna didn't belong to anyone, The townspeople said she had wandered into the village during a snowstorm a year ago. Since then, she'd roamed freely, loved by all but claimed by none. But with Ava, it was different. One cloudy afternoon, Ava didn't return home. The sky turned dark, rain poured down. Her parents panicked and called the police. But Luna knew. Somehow Luna sensed it. She ran into the forest like lightning, following Ava's scent. Hours earlier, Ava had followed a deer path deeper than ever before. She wasn't afraid, not with Luna always in her mind. But the trail was slippery. She tripped, rolling down a steep hill and landing hard near the riverbank. Her ankle hurt. She couldn't climb back up. She was wet, cold, and scared. The thunder roared above her. Trees shook. She covered her ears. Then she saw her, Luna, charging through the trees, barking louder than ever. Ava's eyes widened. Tears fell silently. Luna licked her face, then circled her, nudging gently, checking her. The dog barked, again and again, until far away, a flashlight beam broke through the darkness. Rescuers followed the sound, finding Ava curled beside Luna. They wrapped her in blankets. Her parents hugged her, crying with relief. And that's when it happened. Ava looked at Luna, then at her parents. And for the first time in her life, she whispered, "Luna." The silence was broken. The doctors called it a miracle. Ava kept speaking after that. Not much, but enough. Enough to connect. Enough to show she was there. And Luna? She stayed. The town agreed. Luna belonged with Ava. She moved into their home, slept by her bed, and walked beside her every day. Years later, when Ava spoke to crowds as an advocate for children with selective mutism, Luna sat quietly in the front row. The girl who once had no voice had found it, all because of a dog who listened, even to silence.